Hey, it says we're live, so I'm going to assume that is the case. These days, it's hard to say. Let's see. I'll go over here and see if it says going live. Well, it says the connection is excellent. It says we're live. So, hey, we're live. Welcome, everybody. How y'all doing? So good to see you. Yeah, I'll tell you what. I do love soul music. That's all I got to say. Now I'm seeing myself in a delayed. There's y'all know if ever you've done this, you know, sometimes seeing yourself delayed and coming and going. So anyway, much love and favor to all of you all. The Soul Tribe has arrived. So, and we are all alive. So there we go. Well, poet and didn't know it and made it rhyme twice as a dime. So, BOSTO, big hug to everybody. You know, got my Sky Pilot here. After this weekend, man, I tell you, I think we need a whole hour of just hugging each other. And since they seem to be hell-bent in keeping that from happening, we'll just have to do our surrogate. So yes, Al, we are in the twilight zone. So good to see you, Al. How are you and Perry doing? Much love to you and protection, lost in space. Lucky Stone, hello. So good to see you. Gaia, you know, I was going to call you yesterday. Mm-hmm. Didn't, but was. We'll get to it, guarantee it. Hey, David Barry goes, so good to see you, brother. Susie Q. So what else is up? Mr. Floyd, what's happening? Loretta. Let's see. Doris, how you doing? Continuing with the books. Yes, and actually this is just like it's one long tapestry, you know, that's all I can say. And it just keeps on. Hey, boots on the ground, Jargo. What's up, Shannon? Hello, dear. Justice for all and the Princess Funk. I like that. Listening to some Pointer Sisters just a little bit ago, you know. Yeah. I like the Pointer Sisters. That's all I got to say. But then again, I like Barbara Streisand. You know, love her voice in her movies. Yeah. Anyway, so what's happening, Lion Rex? Good to see you. Ron Weiss, hello, brother. How you up to? Cheryl, good to see you as well. Man, lots of happening. So, going to give you the lineup for the guest coming on Thursday. We have Jenny coming on. She's got a story about her grandfather, folks. Y'all need to hear. So I'm looking forward to that. Jenny, I saw your show today. Just checked in on you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, got to speak with a voice. On the 31st, that's next Wednesday. This month's almost gone. Got April and Jay coming on from Spiritually Raw. That's going to be fun. Ryder Lee is coming back on. He's got something that he has been shown. And Jane Tripp, we're going to get a time set with her. And got a couple of others coming on as well. So far out. Lots going on. Hey, Isby, what's up? Hey, hello, Lois. Good to see you. What's else up there? Rod Lingle, good to see you. Who else? Nina the Mystic. Hello, dear. How are you? So good to see you. All right. So, interesting thing happened along the way. Remember that? Ever get that story? I had other things planned, but there was something that came up yesterday, and I deal with this, it seems, more often than I realize, I guess. But someone who is in the process of having a loved one, a dearly loved one, making the transition. And it's not an easy one. This one is difficult. This is still ongoing. The best thing I can say, it drained me. I mean, it really did. It drained me. When you come up against a thought form that has been created by an individual for decades, and particularly where the subject of death is concerned. We're all going to get there. I mean, the world, folks, is in a spiral. I think we all going to have to get real here and realize singing Kumbaya and holding hands isn't going to change a goddamn thing. What begins to change is what happens in us individually. And as we begin to find our voice and begin to speak out against this individually, those voices will be joined. But we're in a world of hurt. There is an inertia that has built up, and that inertia has not met with an opposing force of equal force or greater force. And we are, each day you see or hear the stories of governments collapsing into anarchy, tyranny on the rise everywhere. And what goes with those two is death. And depending on what your particular point of view, humanity may be in the single largest death experienced ever witnessed by our species. That's all I'll say to that. Tune in Thursday night to the Steiger perspective. The theme is, I do not consent, and neither should you. You need to tune in on Thursday night, because that's a platform where freedom of thought and speech is not hindered, as it should be with all humanity. If you're afraid of someone's thoughts, you've got real problems. I know, I used to be there. It's like, oh my God, they have a different belief than I do. What are we going to do? Well, you adapt, you fool. Listen, there's two things in learning. None of us are the towering oaks yet. So that means we're like the ferns. And the way a fern grows to become a big oak tree is that it learns to yield back and forth, always finding its center point. So there we go. Hey, Marsha, what's up, my love? Good to see you, dear. David Castle, much love to you, my friend. Paul Joe, good to see you as well. So, Reby one, thank you. So, what I was dealing with was a tulpa. You could say a golem in a thought form, fear, particularly the fear of death. And in this case, and I won't get into the particulars of it, but as I said, when something drains me, just brother, there's some powerful energy on the other side of that. But yeah, so it got me. Well, Deborah last Thursdays was a humdinger too. Well, hello, Jeremy Gibbs. Found this channel researching Lilith. Yeah, Lilith is she's much loved here. We don't fear her here. Actually, many of us have great reverence and respect for her. And whether she is an actual being or if she is nothing more than in the ethereal, her presence and energy has influenced mankind. So we give recognition to that. Hey, Tessa, what's up? Emperor Rex, outside. Excellent. So, it got me into it. There is a place called the Institute for Metaphysical Sciences that deal really with this topic. And without further ado, let's get right into it. I worked on this, putting this together because, PowerPoint is an excellent teaching tool. So this is the metaphysics of death and the afterlife. Listen, we're all going to face it. Let's just be honest. Now, we can have a great bravado that says, I'll face it with courage and a smile, and hopefully that is the case. But hey, it's going to happen. The question is, where do we stand after that point. And oddly enough, depending on where you are born in the world will influence a lot of what you think about the afterlife. It's really strange. We're going to talk about Ka. That is spirit. That is the energetic one. Your Ka. It's Egyptian. This is the hieroglyph for it. It means power, energy to act with arms and hands. And why this is significant, when I was a Christian, it was real interesting because they're coming up on Palm Sunday. But you give worship by giving your palms to God. You let your palms be seen. And it is a transference of power. What you don't know is what you're doing in that praise and worship is that you're transmuting your energy into this thought form that you have decided to freely give to. It is our moral spirit, our essence, the nature determines our quality of life. Some people are born with very strong Ka. There's others that are very weak Ka. And those who come in with a strong Ka are on a mission. And they're expending, how should we say, very precious energy of their own. And it gets deep, and we're going to get into that. It also means character, behavior, action, deeds, the rakater, the charisma. Who we are by our actions and deeds determines our qualities of life. There are some beliefs that say all people bring in about 35% of their energy. You don't bring in your full spirit being into these bodies. The bodies couldn't handle it. Literally, they'd short out, which is, we'll be talking about that. In fact, we may discuss it tomorrow with Trina on a second look. But anyway, so you have those that are said that they expend half of their energy into a cycle. They're going to typically be someone that's going to be making an impact on this realm. So anyway, so I want to give you a story of how all religion, all spirituality, how the whole myth, and you know, it's a myth. We can't measure it scientifically, of a soul. But before you get your panties in a wad, back down a little bit and just hear me out. This is the birth of the Ka man, the spirit man. The Egyptians teach this, that this is the soul of a man. This is what leaves the body when the transition begins. We each have a Ka. It means a spiritual entity. We each are a spiritual entity. We get lost because of the amnesia we have. We identify ourselves with these physical bodies. And I am not Wayne Steiger. I am not. That is a name. I'm occupying this avatar. I am partially here, but I'm really not here. I am too great of a being to give my essence to this low density, as all of you are. Yeah. And if you think about yourself in that way, it begins to change things. Things in the spirit, the ethereal realm, begin to change around you because suddenly you have been resurrected. We'll get into that a little bit more. An aspect of the individual believed to live within the body during the life and to survive it after death. Imagine all of us, that's why some of us know each other. We may not know each other in this realm and all the particulars, but we know of the essence. We know of that spirit entity. Why? Chances are we're probably together, many of us. All right, so hear me out on this. Let me remove there we go. There we go. All right, here is our story. Have some tea as he clears his throat. Ah, yes. Ages before him, meaning modern man, the dawn man, the earliest caveman, saw his shadow in the sun, his reflection in the water, and crudely thought that he had a sort of shadowy double, which accompanied him and at times showed itself visible to him. Now, you have to really think about this, about your shadow. We take it for so much granted, but I contend early dawn man was much more of a philosopher than what we think. He had lots of time to think. And the shadow was fascinating. It seemed both to mimic him, but at the same time complement him. And when he looked into the water, he saw something staring back that he did not recognize as him. At night, when the dawn man, gorged with raw and often putrid flesh, in a nightmare dream saw terrible monsters assailing him, or in more normal sleep wandered forth and visited distant scenes of his previous roamings, or saw, as in the flesh, living and acting before his eyes, his dead father or friend. Thus he got further immature notions of a devil, a kai, or a detachable spirit man dwelling within him, which could leave the body and return at will, or which survived the death of the body and lived on in spirit form, and could revisit the old inhabitation and hold conversations with and do good or harm to the frightened living. This, we've talked about this in ways. I know Trina and I have touched upon it, but I contend the early, I don't know if you want to say Iron Age man, Neolithic man, I don't know, caveman, Neanderthal, Cro-Magnon. Listen, I don't believe that we started out as supermen here. Don't think so. I don't believe that we were given instant intelligence. And so the early man, as I have seen it, was probably much more spiritually connected to the realm that was being created, and that is the spirit realm. In this, it would seem, whether it was man's imagination, his fear of being ate, because that was a real possibility. You didn't have a very long life back then, because there were bigger critters than you that ate you. But nevertheless, I think the spirit realm that was nurturing in the bosom, the womb of the physical realm, was able to reach early man in a way because man didn't have the full command of language. Early man only had telepathy. And I believe the spirit realm, I believe that there was not only communion, but I think there was also an exchange that many wizards try to, many witches, of actually physically touching the ethereal. Thus came the belief in the existence and survival after death of this double or spirit ghost. Thus the notion of the immortality of the soul, its primitive belief held by every people of antiquity, and surviving yet by inheritance among the priest taught of modern times. We are all under a very dark spell. The world is. When you awaken from that spell, that's when you really begin to see what has been created here. And how did this thing start? Well, this strange phantoms of the night naturally worked further upon the fear-filled mind of the early child men. Terrified by the frightful vicissitudes of life, the violent deaths by wild animals, and the storms and the floods that killed and maimed them, the lightning and the thunders that terrified them. All these things were to them clearly the manifestation of the anger and revenge of the departed spirits, especially the old man, God in all modern day religions, of the clan, the old man of the clan, who had bossed in life and had grudges against all who had not been sufficiently obedient to him. Awakening from these dreaded visions of the night, the frightened dawn man would relate the uncanny visitations to his fellows, who would have likely ghostly dream stuff to exchange themselves. Together they would wonder whether something could be done to propitiate or to placate the wandering ghost men and to win their favor for benefits to be had from their superior otherworldly status and power. See, we were always subservient. It could not be long before some old crafty member of the nomadic clan would hint that he had known the old man. He knew God well during life and had been very friendly with him living and had a powerful influence with him now, that he was wise to the ways and whims of the ghost or the gods, and no doubt he could get in touch with his spirit and cajole him into reasonableness and favor. There you go. There's the word favor, needed on the other side, apparently, too. This suggestion, meeting with all acquiescence, it would quickly be followed by the forthright, bold claim to super ghostly powers, and by sundry weird mumblings and mystic rites and incantations, the old faker would further awe the clan into credulous faith in his claim. This was the beginning of what we call the con of spiritualism, the beginning of religion. It was a con game. If you could become a shaman, and if you happen to be bright enough to understand some just basic elemental things of science, nature, you could begin to put on a show that all the other suckers in the clan would do your hard work, give you a house, give you food. Hell, they'll give you money because you know God, the old man. And thus the biggest con to ever hit humanity was launched. And thus is what we find ourselves in today, the con of religion and spiritualism, because they have made a fortune off selling to us the whole spirit of death thing. You'll give your tithes, your offerings. You'll do anything if you've bought the thought form, because when this comes, you ain't got no peace. All you have is death. So what is death? Well, we all think we have an idea. Let's just see what it says. In this case, the concept of death scares everyone. There is not a lot of information available that proves with scientific evidence that there is life after death. Now, I know all the things that people say, well, they've seen them wait, but go and do the research. Go and find the papers that the supposedly science or doctor was writing. If you can't find the medical, the scientific writings, then it's just a rumor. All esoteric, religious, and spiritual texts have talked about this blissful state of the afterlife. All are merely man's thoughts. Whatsoever that be within us that feels, thinks, desires, animates, is something celestial, divine, and consequently imperishable. Aristotle. So what is death? Death is a process of deep sleep and dreaming of the journey to the afterlife. It is a way to cross the dimension of life to the dimension of the afterlife. Death also means the end of life and the dissolution of soul and body. Death occurs when all the vital organs of the body no longer function and the breath ceases. The silver cord connecting the soul to the physical body is released. The soul then moves into the Bardo state. Yeah, we're going to talk about Bardo. Death is also the greatest source of grief and sorrow. I profess that this is one of the reasons why we have many religious and esoteric beliefs, all in an effort to explain not only why we die, but what happens when we die, how death occurs. Just as in birth, the death process approaches gradually, unless it's blunt force trauma, where your spirit is literally pushed out of your body due to catastrophic damage to this body. There is a time of labor. The body grows gradually cooler as the life force withdraws, taking with it the vital heat of the form. In the center of the brain, surrounding the pineal gland, a small bright light appears. At first it glows, then dims, then glows again, dimming and glowing alternately, but glowing each time with increased brilliance. Once the brilliance stabilizes, it appears to become a highly charged positive magnet, attracting the electricity, the magnetism, and life force of the body. A soft, luminous mist begins to radiate around the head while the rest of the body begins to cool. So the equation would be B plus B equals living soul, B minus B equals D, no soul. Body plus breath, body being dust, breath being spirit, gives life to what is called a living soul. The soul, in this case, in this particular belief, does not move on. So the body that's still the death is deprived of the breath of the spirit, and thus death ensues. The brain's magnetic field is absorbing the life principles from the muscle, bone, nerves, and blood. Like electromagnetic flashes of slow-moving lightning, particles from the lower portions of the body begin to gravitate towards the focal point in the brain. The life force first leaves the feet, then the hands, and then the arms. The nails gradually turn purple, reflecting the strange quality of change in the blood. I learned this decades ago. Life is in the blood. There is we would call it an alchemy effect, but it is there. Breathing may become labored and the eyes somewhat dimmed. As the life force gravitates upward, the pineal center expands. The brain and the skull become porous. It is at this moment, just prior to death, that the dying pilgrim enters the first phase of the Bardo experience through which every soul passes. This is the ultimate moment of your entire incarnation. This is when there dawns before you the clear light of the void, the gateway to salvation and initiation. The life force of the entire form is now condensed in the third eye. So you can see by this is blending a lot of different belief systems. You have Islam in this, you have Hindu, you have Hebrew, Judaism, and it's an expression of, again, what this particular belief says. And I think it's pretty interesting. It gets down pretty nitty-gritty on as far as the medical aspect of it. The pineal pituitary glands and the mental seed atom, ATOM, for those that are listening, are vibrating at tremendous velocities. I believe this is what's happening. It is not unusual for the pilgrim to experience spiritual ecstasy and psychic visitations. You see the word pilgrim because in an essence, we're all making a pilgrimage to the other side. This is the moment you may arouse from apparent unconsciousness, exclaiming to those around you that you see into the worlds of higher dimensions, landscapes of indescribable beauty, faces of loved ones long since dead who have come to greet you, or to simply all-encompassing bliss. It is following this that you will lapse into the death of a coma. Your breathing and your heartbeat ceases. You have entered the first phase of death. Yeah, there's different phases, recognized by medical science as clinical death. You're not really dead. You're clinically dead, but you're not really dead. A period lasting from 6 minutes to a half an hour. This period has been written about. It is said that this is the time when most people think that they're actually facing judgment, or they actually go into a place of purgatory or whatever. Remember, in the spirit realm, 30 seconds can be an epoch. And it's really interesting because there have been many people who will tell you who work where death is at, in hospitals, particularly when you have to take bodies down to the morgue. There's all sorts of, and Marsha, I know you're listening, hon, can probably testify this as well. There's all sorts of things that happen to our bodies where these bodies still have, they're fighting for life. I mean, they're dying slowly. I mean, the cells are imploding, but yeah, you can still seem alive. Can you imagine that? There have been cases where they started embalming people. They were still alive, clinically dead. So what happens next? Most religions believe that when we die, we go to heaven or hell. Some religions hold the belief that we are reincarnated and come back in another form. And obviously, there are many variations of these beliefs. When we really think about it, there are really only two possible options at death. They are, and I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, one, we either cease to exist, or option two, or continue to live on in some way, and the soul moves into the Bardo state. Now, my problem with reincarnation is this. Mathematically and scientifically, it doesn't make sense. Because if you say that there was one, then two, and one and two died, well, then if you're going to say that they reincarnated, well, now wait a minute. The problem is you go back to the beginning, it doesn't make any sense. Anyway, that's my personal opinion. What and where is Bardo? Now, again, we're using many different belief systems here. This is what I like about this. Used loosely, Bardo is the state of existence intermediate between two lives on Earth. Between two lives on Earth. According to Tibetan tradition, after death and before one's next birth, when one's consciousness is not connected with a physical body, one experiences a variety of phenomena. These usually follow a particular sequence in degeneration form from just after death, the clearest experience of reality of which one is spiritually capable. Well, I guess that would be true reality. Once you leave this crazy one, I only hope it's more stable over there. I don't know. The clearest experience of reality of which one is spiritually capable, and then proceeding to terrifying hallucinations that arise from the impulses of one's previous unskillful actions. See, I got a whole problem with this. This is a whole problem with judgment. What the hell are you being judged on? Don't come at me and say, well, now, Steiger, you didn't quite get this love thing down right. Well, who the hell are you? Tell me what love is. My experience in this realm is that there's a lot of other assholes who don't know what love is either. So you can't blame me on that one. So, I mean, I ain't getting this judge panel thing here. What, are you judging me for being imperfect? Well, what the hell am I supposed to be? If I was anything but imperfect, then I would be in sin. And it's impossible to say that I am perfect, for I would have self-annihilated myself if I separated and became imperfect while being perfect. So that shit don't hold up for me at all. Anyway, let's get back into the religious part of this. No, this is more, I would say this is more theological than anything else. For the prepared and appropriately trained individuals, the Bardo offers a state of great opportunity for liberation. since transcendental insight may arise with the direct experience of reality. For others, it can become a place of danger, as the karmically created hallucinations can impel one into a less than desirable rebirth. Yeah, this has got pain written all over it. Metaphorically, Bardo can describe times when our usual way of life becomes suspended, as for example, during a period of illness or during a meditation retreat, or like, like myself, you've been in extended comas. This is where we were at, according to this. Such times can prove fruitful for spiritual progress because external constraints diminish. I do probably have to say, I don't remember my coma, but I came out a changed person. Not sure what happened over there. Now, in Islam, the soul and the body are independent of each other. This is significant in the barzakh, I think that's zakah. Maybe if I mispronounce it, I apologize. Because only a person's soul goes to the barzakh and not their physical body. Since one's soul is divorced from their body and the barzakh, the belief is that no progress or improvements to one's past life can be made. If a person's experienced a life of sin, the worldly pleasures, one cannot try to perform good deeds in order to reach Jannah, which is paradise, heaven. Whatever one does in his or her lifetime is final and cannot be changed or altered in barzakh. However, there is belief that the fire, which represents your own bad deeds, can already be seen in the barzakh, and there the spiritual pain caused by this can lead to purification of the soul. And Paul, the Apostle Paul, wrote almost virtually the same thing. Now, I reject this. I don't accept this. I don't accept this at all as any type of reality. There is something that does happen. So let's see what offers and maybe some other ideas. So the Christian belief concerning life after death, the afterlife, is that this is taken to mean that Jesus, which there is none, sacrifice was a victory over sin and death. Again, we get into this whole sin thing. Folks, this is the craziness. This is the spell. This is what this is what dark magic does. You see, there are writings where it says this very same Christ, I've got them right here, by the way, that's called the Apocrypha, in the Nag Hammadi, where this Jesus dude says, hey, there ain't no sin. So wait a minute. If he says there's no sin, then wait. What's this thing about this blood cult? Anyway, I digress. Although physical death still happens, those who believe in Christ and live good lives will be given eternal life in heaven. They also believe that after death, they will be taken into the presence of God, judged for the deeds they have done. Bullshit. But anyway, I continue. Islam belief concerning the afterlife and death. The akara is the word Muslims use to refer to life after death. Belief in the afterlife encourages Muslims to take responsibility for their actions, and that is good for all of us. They know God will hold them accountable and reward or punish them accordingly. Akra explains humans' existence on earth, saying that life is a test from Allah. Importantly, though, Muslims believe that Allah will not test them beyond their limits. Same thing that you have in the Hebrew tradition as well in the postmodern Christian. The afterlife, the after death, most Muslims believe that the soul will enter the barzakh and the state of waiting, kind of like purgatory, until the day of judgment. Now, a Native Americans, it's really difficult, but because they never had anything organized. There's not really such a thing as an organized Native American religion in the way that Christianity or Islam or Judaism is a religion. There is no central set of rules or beliefs, and historically, spiritual teachings were never written down, only passed on from generation to generation. Native American beliefs are deeply rooted in their cultures and histories, and in the past, spiritual would have been an integral part of the daily life, the spiritual world. As previously mentioned, each tribe has its own specific traditions regarding death rituals and funerals. One common aspect is that the idea that the spirit of a person lives on after their physical death and journeys into the afterlife, although there is no concept of heaven or hell. If we could only learn. That's why they had to wipe out the Native Americans. Christianity could not have survived if the true human beings had taught the white man. Nope, white man has head up ass. Fecal matter for brain. Anyway, Judaism belief concerning the afterlife and death. In Judaism, the belief of heaven and the afterlife is connected with Shiloh, which is mentioned in Isaiah. Several dozen times throughout Scripture, the word Shiloh appears with reference to the afterlife. The Old Testament portrays Shiloh as a bunker of humanity's enemy. The devil, the exiled wilderness away from the promised land, etc. Yet Shiloh is under God's authority, and Old Testament saints testify to his power to raise people up from the depths of Shiloh. In Jesus, I don't know how, when you get the two of them in this, I'm going, this is where they mix up. In Jesus, God did just that. He entered the realm of the dead himself, defeating death and the grave and fulfilling the darkness of Sheol and the light of his resurrection. Okay. While the concept of heaven, which is the Mulkoth, the Hashmashen, the kingdom of heaven, is well defined within the Christian and Islamic religions, the Jewish concept of the afterlife. Many Jewish texts refer to a new earth as the abode of mankind following the resurrection of the dead. Judaism believes in heaven as a place where God is and resides and not man. Now, the Polynesian beliefs concerning the afterlife. Another interesting tradition of heaven can be found in the creation of the stories of the Polynesian mythology. There are found many concepts of the heavens and the underworld. These differ from one island to another. What they share is the view of the universe as an egg or coconut that is divided between the world of humans, earth, the upper world of heavenly gods, and the underworld. Each of these is subdivided in a manner reminiscent of Dante's Divine Comedy, but the number of divisions and their names differ from one Polynesian culture to the other. The Egyptian depictions of the life after death. In the afterlife, the Egyptians believed that our soul, our consciousness, does live on after the death of the physical body, and that there was another realm that all souls would go to be judged by their earthly actions. Again, there is this reoccurring theme. So we talk about heaven. What is heaven? Heaven, again, is a catch-all phrase. There's a cornucopia of theories available on heaven, depending upon the individual's religions or spiritual belief or faith and faith. The common belief held by many on heaven is a state of joy, peace, and bliss as rewarded to the good actions. Now, it doesn't say it's an actual physical place. It says that it's a state of joy. Well, if you're a state of joy, is that a state of consciousness or is that a physical place? Heaven can be viewed as the physical place, which includes places like the Earth's atmosphere, the solar system, and or a plane of divine existence that is pure and holy, which is accessible to the good and pious individuals. Again, who's defining good here? I don't know. More on heaven. The Christians hold the belief that heaven is a spiritual place, unreachable by humans and only entered after death. The kingdom of heaven is another important concept of the afterlife, where the faithful believer will enjoy everlasting joy and peace and bliss. Nothing about reincarnation, because in Christianity, they don't believe in reincarnation, neither does the Jewish people. So anyway, in Eastern religions, such as Buddhism, there are many heavens. Those who have good karma will be reborn in one of them. Their stay in heaven is not everlasting, rather depends upon their good karma. When it is used up, isn't that interesting? That's, that's a concept that you have to really get your head around. Using up good karma. Okay. I'm still processing that. The individual will undergo a different rebirth into another realm. Buddhists focused on freeing themselves from the cycle of rebirth and reaching enlightenment. They believe this because heaven is an illusionary reality and temporary. Well, that's interesting. I love this one. The consciousness and the survival theory. Now, this is one I really could wrap myself around. The survival hypothesis is a theory that states a person's personality and consciousness survive the physical death of the body. Accordingly, humans have a dual nature, a physical body and an ethereal aspect that contains the personality and consciousness. This ethereal aspect has been called the consciousness of the soul, the spirit, the higher self, among others. Now, I can dig this because, see, I contend that the only judgment people are going to face is themselves. There is a passage, again, in these books that says, if you judge yourself, there is no judgment. You see, no God can judge another human being. Problem is, the buck has to go back to somewhere. You see what I'm saying? Now, here's an interesting one. Shared death experience. And I'm really going to get into this a little bit more because it's a new area of research that says, well, let's just read what it says. The reported elements of shared death experiences are indistinguishable elements of classic near-death experiences. That is, the components of the narratives of the two types of experiences are the same. Furthermore, narratives are all we have to go on in assessing the meaning of such experiences. Hence, there is no clear bias for saying that near-death experiences and shared death experiences are distinct phenomena. That implies that the neuropsychological explanations of near-death experiences are not adequate. Bystanders at the death of someone else are not ill or injured, yet they report the same experience. Now, I contend that these are advanced empaths, intuitives. It had never occurred to me that a highly disciplined empath could be in for quite a rude awakening, staying at the side of someone who is in the midst of the transition, the death throes. So here's what they say. Seeing the dying person's spirit leave the body. Bystanders say that they see a roundish entity, often described as a golden grayish mist, rise from the upper part of the body. In some cases, the bystander describes this as a transparent replica of the person who has died. Two, accompanying the dying person part way towards the light. This is fascinating. Bystanders say they seem to leave their own body and rise above it at the time when someone else dies. Usually they report seeing the spirit of the person who died. At some point, the bystander returns to their own body and the person who died seems to enter the light. Could it be, Soul Tribe, that this is what they stole from us? That as there are natural healers, natural empaths, intuitives, seers, prophets, prophetesses, that there are those who can be trained to be the guides between the two dimensions. This is fascinating to me. It tells me that there is something, it's hard to find research on this, but I just wonder. We see it replayed in the religions. You'll have a priest, a minister, a rabbi, whatever, a shaman. But the ones I know today are worthless. They have no more clue what they're worshiping, much less what they're talking about. But what if there are those that can be trained? It would make the transitioning, folks, this could revolutionize how we look at the bridge. Anyway, experiencing the change in geometria in the room. Bystanders say that when someone else died, it seemed that they entered into another realm that did not operate by the rules of the three-dimensional geometry. They may say that they found themselves out of their bodies, and viewing the room seems to take on the configuration of a tunnel. Excuse me, I wrote funnel. It can be a funnel. However, they say that this alternate geometry is impossible to describe in the words of ordinary language. I bet. Here's another thing: hearing beautiful music. Bystanders sometimes report that as someone in the room died, they heard beautiful music. Music. Anyway, again, the music is said to be so beautiful that they find that no words are adequate to describe. You know where we read this at? With Michael Jackson. Marilyn wrote the exact same thing. Seeing a brilliant light. Bystanders say that an unearthly light of love and comfort filled the room as someone died. This was not an ordinary physical light, they say, but a supernatural light of peace and comfort. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about these two different lights. I contend, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to make my argument with Trina. We don't know what light is, not in this realm. All light in this realm is artificial. The true light is the ethereal light, the spirit light. And this kind of backs that up. 6, perceiving spirits entering the room. Bystanders say they see apparitions, apparently of dying persons' deceased loved ones, enter the room around the point of death. Folks, I mean, we've got to explore this more. I mean, this is a huge untapped area that it resonates in my spirit strongly. 7, empathically co-living the life review of a dying person. Wow. Bystanders view images or scenes of the life of the person who is passing away. Sometimes this takes the form of a holographic panorama that surrounds the bed and the dying. Wow. I mean, this is, for me, this is why I do this, because it's opened a whole new path for me to look into. That this is something, I'm telling you, it could become the single greatest gift to humanity, is to have those who are naturally endowed with this ability. And I believe that there's probably many of them out there. They just aren't aware of it. Why? It's not taught. Deathbed visions are events in which a dying person receives a visit from a deceased loved one in the hours, days, or weeks prior to death. The purpose appears to be to comfort the dying person in his or her last hours. Deathbed visions have some common characteristics which are listed below. After exploring the many aspects of death, we can come to safely say that death is not something to be feared. Rather, the process of death is in the end, it is the end of our current life, but it also becomes the beginning of life after death. Having this knowledge greatly should ease all of our minds. And I happen to agree with him. I think, though, this aspect of the shared death experience is something that is, I got to be candid with you, I did not know until I actually started doing this, that I became aware of this. Whew. I'm just reading the comments in there. I can't see the comments while I'm sharing the screen, but anyway, it fascinates me. I don't believe in the background behind me. That is bullshit. There is no heaven, there is no hell. Neither construct can exist because they're contradictory of each other's existence. And again, how could something judge you that never lived your life? How could? You're the only one. If you condemn yourself, well, get ready. Most likely you're going to be in a place that you're not going to enjoy for a while. Eventually, it dissipates like a fog, like a mirage. Eventually, most work themselves back. I would assume that's what I've read. And then I've read the other stories that where I have experienced out-of-body experiences. I never saw a place called hell. I never saw anything like that. What I saw was what my journey was. My journey wasn't the light. I've told you this. I've written it down. The experience I had, it was last year. It was right before the visitor came to visit me. And it's interesting what the visitor told me is coming to pass. But I've not seen this place. I saw the light, I saw the tunnel, but my journey went off to the other side. I never got into that. I could see in my experience, my vision, whatever you want to call it, I saw in countless number of energies heading into that light. But I know, as I've told the story, it's here, there were about a dozen other of us. And we were speeding and it was, you could say it was darkness, but it wasn't darkness. There is a light. It's a background light. It has various shades to it. And I told y'all when I reached the end, there was a platform and there literally was a gate. We lost a number of the other, what I guess they were people. They seemed to fall back into the light. Those who made it to the platform, the being that opened the gate said, once you pass through, there ain't no coming back here. And I stepped through. I told the story. And the next thing I knew, I saw that gate, that realm. It was like it was in a warp speed. It just went whoosh, and it was gone. It was gone. And I was out there by myself. And there is a realm. There is another realm. And the best I can tell you, I can't. It's palatable. It's tangible. You can feel it. So I've been there. When I came back, it was though something was sucking me literally right in my solar plexus. That's where I felt the pull. And I mean, woke up back here. So I got back in, I guess. I don't know, or maybe I was seeing a future. I'm not sure, but there is a place out there. Anyway, I hope you found that this is interesting. I did. You know, when you begin to combine all the beliefs of humanity, and I by far didn't list all of them. I mean, look at Mesoamerica. I mean, in the Mesoamerican period, you know, we know about the Incas and the Mayas, pretty bloody. But then again, I can also have to take that through the eyes that their culture, their beliefs have been polluted by Christianity. Remember, it was the Christians that killed them all. As the Inca said, they never met the devil until they saw the Christian white man. And I think that they were right. What Christianity did to establish itself, tells me that back. Where's that damn garlic when you need it? But this is when you just have to step back and go,
relax, calm down now, don't stress, take it easy.
okay, all right. And I got my crystal here that gets me, and so yeah, because it can. Thank you, Lois. Thank you so much. Thank you for the thumbs up, everybody. I appreciate that. So that's just that's what it is in Wayne's world. I mean, I contemplate on these things, and particularly, like I said, when you deal with people who are desperately seeking help, guidance. They have a loved one who's dying. They know they're dying, and they're freaked out. Well, thank you, Danielle. I appreciate that. That's what I did professionally as a CEO. You always use PowerPoint and when you go before investor conferences, if you don't know how to use PowerPoint, and then you're screwed. So, hey, Jenny, I saw your show today. Woo, girl, you go. Anyway, hey, Wendy. So folks, bullshit is right. You got that right, Jojo. That's what it is. Uh-huh. It is. It's trapped us. I think about how we're treating each other, people harming each other, deliberately causing pain and suffering. And folks, we got to get out of it. I don't have the answer for it. I don't know. It befuddles my consciousness why we can't seem to rise above it. We actually did some work on Emmanuel. Did I see that right? Yeah, we actually did a whole thing on his works, and I found it very interesting myself. All right, folks. Well, this has just been really cool. Thank you. It's a subject I will never get tired of. If you ever want to come on and talk about it, that's good. I'm going to get Gaia and Paul on here. They've had some experience, so I'll get there, Gaia, as I'm still trying to get to Fiona. So there we go. Dreamweaver, program, not progress. Program, not progress. Isn't that the truth? Well, you're welcome, Jenny. You're welcome. Okay, well, love the one you're with. Love yourself. Hug someone, you know, let's just be of service to others. Those are the elements that I can only see that lifts us up. If we take that over into the next realm with that attitude permeating our consciousness, folks, you don't have to worry about anything. Yes, Jenny, you are right. They are fooled by both the physical and spiritual systems. And I think it's because we've been mistaught about the spiritual systems. There is a spiritual reality. There is a spiritual realm. If we are spirit, then we should know that realm. We should know it well. We should be well versed with it. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank all of y'all. Much love to you. I'll stop at talking. See y'all tomorrow with Miss Trina. And I always enjoy Miss Trina. And then Thursday, we've got Jenny coming on. Folks, you're not going to want to miss that. She has a story to tell. And wow. And then looking forward to all of our other visitors coming on. All right, Soul Tribe, so much love to you. Continue the way you are, because you are doing the right thing, whatever it is.